We're back with Night Danger. Just a couple days later. I've been thinking about this uh, basically all day at work for the last 2 days since we had our first effort. I'm gonna dial back the coffee this time. I've got myself a glass of eggnog and only one mug of coffee. Uh, okay, there's a local dairy that makes this stuff, and it's just better than any store brand I've ever had in my life. It's really quite incredible. Now, we have to share our screen here as we did the other day because I gotta admit some wrong here. I did a couple things incorrectly the last time we did this. uh, First and most notably, these random encounters that we got. Jeffro has correctly pointed out that 5 in 20, which is to say 1 in 4 encounters in inhabited areas, are patrols. So just now, before we get started and do anything else, we're gonna roll and see if any of the encounters that we've had thus far were actually patrols. We won't know whose patrols they are. We'll worry about that in a minute. But for now, we will uh, flag these, replace them as patrols. Now, there's some of these encounters I'm kind of hoping will get replaced. I just don't care about giant rats. Um, and I only need one instance of pilgrims on the encounter table. So hopefully I'll get the ones that I want. But ultimately, a big part of this exercise, which is not an effort to prove the objectively correct way to build an overworld, but rather to demonstrate the viability of one way of making an overworld. We're going to live and die by the dice. So, we've got Coltrane and Davis again tonight, and I'm feeling relaxed. So, are those giant rats really there? Nope, that's a patrol. Are these ogres really there? No, that's a patrol. That was first roll was a 1. This one's a 4, by the way. I'll say the numbers aloud. Is this will-o-wisp there? I hope it is, man. Will-o-wisps are cool. 3. No. Ogres again. 18. Those ogres are there. What about the Hilgrims? The Pilgrims of the Hills. 20. There's the gnomes. 2. Gnomes are not there. Nomads. 4. Nomads are not there. Please, please let me keep my orcs. We found a cool place for them. Some ruins up in the mountains, the largely unpopulated mountains. 9. Oh, thank goodness. These brigands. 2. Other instance of pilgrims. 19. The wolves. 12. The merchants. 11. The bandits. 4. The ghasts. 16. The ogre. also 16. Now, a couple of these didn't get rolled the other night, which brings us to the next thing, the next order of business. I've made a couple little changes to the map based on the flavor that I've been getting thus far. And I rolled up a couple little extra things in this bottom corner here. I made some progress following the procedure. It gave us a couple other encounters, in particular those ghasts and the ogre, I believe. Possibly those bandits. The other important thing it did is it gave us our next city, right here, in this hills. And so I rolled up. We got a chaotic neutral city, slightly larger than the city of Goths over here. And I'm still not sure what to make of all of these results. It kind of feels like a weird kind of Robin Hood thieves based city. The altruism focus paired with the scant wealth, the scrupulous, greedy, craven nature. I don't know. It doesn't seem like anyone in this area is, for one, neither of our cities are wealthy. They're both impoverished. So that's interesting. We'll see if a third one shows up in this last stretch. The other thing I did is I changed the color, the tile representation of the map. I moved the tiles to icy mountains instead of regular mountains because I like the gray tiles. I like gray rock more than brown rock as just an aesthetic decision, especially with, frankly, just how much marsh we've been getting. We've gotten so many marsh tiles, even in non-marsh regions. And with the pines and the marshes, gray mountains feel more appropriate. And in conjunction with that, I have replaced the Badlands tokens from these kind of Utah mesas to these dead tree hills. I'm picturing, if you've ever been to the Canadian Shield, you get these big hills that are just rock. Like the rock is just protruding from the earth. There might be a bit of soil on top of it, but often the soil is just covered in moss and feeble scrub. The trees struggle to grow in it. And you'll get whole groves of dead trees where either water has drained off these rocky hills or water has completely flooded an area and killed, like drowned all the trees. So our Badlands are more dead rocky moors and less arid northwestern buttes. Anything else that I've changed while off camera? I think that's everything. I think that brings us up to speed. Let's see here. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 zones left unrolled. Now what we have to remember to do is roll and see what terrain we have. Then check our encounters based on our encounter flags as before, which is to say that skull and crossbones represents either a morning or afternoon check, and a campfire represents an evening, night, midnight, pre-dawn. So up to 4 checks at a campfire spot. Based, of course, the odds on what kind of terrain the checks end up being on. In each zone, we're going to determine, like, so for example, here we have night. If we look at this region, we have a campfire, we have a night check. Moving left to right, we have a night check followed by a skull and crossbones. So night and then morning. But if we come over here, we have the skull and crossbones prior to the campfire, so we're going to rule that as a potential afternoon check followed by a night check. In cases like here, where we have 2, it'd be morning, then afternoon, then night, but then also night and then morning. So we'll see what, and in the case where there's no campfire to give us a frame of reference, we will simply roll 50-50. It's either a morning or afternoon, or we'll ignore time of day and we'll just check on a D12 whether or not there's an encounter there. We are rolling on a D12 because we're not in the 1 in 20 odds of full wilderness, but we're also not in the 1 in 10 odds of like heavy population. We're kind of assuming a patrolled but isolated area where lots of these settlements are, there might be roads between the settlements, but the areas and the spaces between them are still fairly wild and untamed. We're assuming that these settlements are walled, that they don't really have a super tight grasp of the world around them. This is not like a player domain where they have systematically cleared and paved over the area to begin collecting peasant taxes. This is a place that might have been systematically cleared at one point and is losing its grip. It is falling from grace. And it's kind of the opposite of your keep on the Borderlands, where instead of pushing out into untamed wilderness, it's a place where, due to mismanagement and corruption, the wilderness is beginning to grow back into it, like a fantasy Detroit. Oh man, that's just so good. I love eggnog. All right, let's zoom in here. Let's do forest first. I'll open up my handy dandy Dungeon Master's Guide. There we go. Starting to get a crease on the Appendix B page because of how often I turn to it. And as always, we'll work from the center hex region and spiral outwards. So, this is a forested area, which will be slightly annoying because, of course, every time you roll woods, you have to check if it's wooded hills or just woods. Speak of the devil. You'll have to forgive me, I'm coming down with something. I'm not sure what, but you work with children and they're just vectors of disease. They give you they simply, they're generous souls. They give you so much, including, of course, persistent endemic illnesses. Okay, so we haven't gotten a non-forest result in this region yet, which is to be expected. Forest is 5 through 14 in the forest subtable. Oh, there we go. Once again, you speak of the devil, and he'll give you hills. Oh, we got a marsh connected to our marsh. Nice. Stuff like that, where you get 2 tiles that line up on the edge, is a big part of what takes a bunch of siloed hexes and blurs them together into these regions. I almost wish that there was a little bit more going on, because you can still fairly clearly see the hex of marsh here, but you can't win them all. And a big part of this is getting out of the way of what you want to happen and embracing the chaos of what might happen. And what might happen you might get just a lot of dense forest here, which I have to wonder when we check for inhabitation. Is this forest dense and patrolled? Or is it depopulous? Oh goodness, I just dropped one of my D100 die again, just like I did the other night. Once again, I will not fish for it on stream. I'll maintain my composure and... Oh, sorry, that should have been woods. 13. I'll maintain my composure and... I think the big thing we're getting from this is this area, this whole region of map is very wet. There's been a lot of ponds, a lot of marshes. It seems like it should be high in elevation with all these hills and mountains, but it's just riddled with agua. Much to think about there. Now, I checked what a depression in a marsh should be, and yes, it does say here that a depression in a marsh is a depression in a marsh is a form of lake. But I feel like, how do you differentiate that from having a pond? Like, now we have a depression, a pond, a depression, and a depression up here in the marsh, which is almost tempting me to move these castles to one side of the hex or the other to indicate that they are on the shore of a large lake. You know what? I'm just gonna... No, I won't do it right now. That's not what we're up to. What we're up to now is just generating terrain and habitation. We'll get to sifting the results and making sense of the results later. Yeah, okay. Let's check our encounters here. So I've got a evening encounter and a morning encounter. And they're both in the forest. In forest, you check all hours of the day, I believe. Let me double check that. Yeah, the forest is like the marsh. There's just encounters crawling out of your ears. So first, let's see if there is an encounter. There's 4 opportunities for this first spot. No. So, no need to worry about that. And now this next one. Also no. And now for these tiles, we'll check inhabitation. Which, by the way, I am correcting myself in making sure that I count for patrols being, or some encounters being patrols. I do maintain that Jeffro is incorrect on the question of castles and inhabitation. If I check each space for the possibility of inhabitation, and when I get a castle result, it tells me to consult the castle tables, plural, in Appendix C, then that's exactly what I'm going to do. And if that means that there's abandoned castles in my region, so be it. I'll make sense of those. But this is a matter of preference. I've got just a tiny bit of eggnog here, like not much in the last. I think I'm going to pour the last little bit into my coffee, which was previously black. But I'm not picky about my coffee. I'll drink my coffee black. I'll drink my coffee with cream and sugar. I'll drink my coffee with just a little bit of milk. I'll drink my coffee. Drink my coffee with just a little bit of maple syrup or some honey. I like coffee. I like coffee a lot. And I'm not picky about the form it takes. And just a little bit of eggnog is nice because it adds that creaminess to it, but also the sweetness, because eggnog is, of course, very rich and very sweet. We have a single dwelling right there. There. All right. That's it for this area. Nice and sparse. Now we get up into... Let's just continue down and do these little woods here. And then we've got 3 bands of hills, another forest, a badland, and some border mountains on the edge here. Getting into quite an interesting little region. I was listening to the Dundermoose breakdown of Bradford Walker's Braunstein, his Race to the Tower, which I was reading the session reports, and I like Bradford's stuff in general. I enjoy his writing style, and I enjoy his approach to gaming quite a bit. But I was listening to it, and I noticed that he mentioned something that I personally experienced and agree with, which is that if he was to do this again, he would do a things he would change about how he approached this. One of the big things he said was he would make the map smaller. That was my experience with Jungleburg and the patron play in Overworld, was that there was lots of cool stuff happening, but it was offset by how do I put this? How huge the place was. Anytime a patron player or a faction wanted to do anything, there was just so much time spent traveling and moving troops around. And at a 1-to-1 time scale, it really kind of harshed the vibe a little bit, because in a lot of ways there was this sense of futility where there was one faction who had druids and by extension had flying minions. Flying minions were able to allow them to they knew everything about everyone, but everyone else didn't know anything about them. And it created this kind of asymmetry that was, just suboptimal. Wait a minute. Which one is it? Oh, yeah, right there. Okay, yeah, these guys were still part of it. Yeah, all right, perfect. Let's go ahead and check these encounters. We have Scrub, which this is an afternoon. Do we check the Scrub in the afternoon? No, we don't. So, no encounter. But we do check in the marsh at all hours. So, we'll delete this afternoon encounter here. Now let's check for the Scrub. No. No. Yeah. No. All right, we got one encounter in the, sorry, not Scrub, marsh. This campfire here. And is it a patrol? 13. No, it is not. Okay, so we can go over to marsh, which I think this is the first encounter we... Nope, we got the Will-O-Wisps. The Will-O-Wisps were a marsh encounter. All right. 23. Humanoid apostrophe. Interesting. The humanoid subtable in the marsh. Roll again. 39. Hobgoblins. We've got hobgoblins. And they're affiliated with marshes. Probably wouldn't place them here, but I might suggest if I get an empty castle up here, or maybe these ruins here in this marshy area, that could be a really good spot for some hobgoblins, especially considering that. Wait a minute. Yesterday, there were ruins in these mountains. There were orcs in those ruins. Where did the ruins go? Did I accidentally erase them? I'm not crazy. The ruins were there. It wasn't these ones. Was it? No. No, it was definitely around here. I'm going to exercise my discretion. I'm going to trust myself. There were ruins up here. Right here. They might have been here. But I'm going to put them there. And after I get off stream, I'll go back to the previous stream. And I'll double check it. And if they are there, I can see them there, then I'll move this icon to wherever they were. Because I remember getting excited about having orcs in my mountains. Because the orcs wanted to potentially do business with ogres. And we were going to put the ogres maybe in the hills here or something. Yeah. So we'll put those ruins there because I'm almost completely certain that they were there. But if we put these the hobgoblins of the marsh somewhere around here, then we've got close neighbors and probable conflict with orcs, which could be really interesting in relation to this major city right here. Yeah. But for now, did my mouse just place those ruins there? My screen hanged. It hung. Froze. Right there. There might not have been those ruins before, but what's one more ruin between friends? Let's check in habitation over here. Okay, nothing. Nothing there. Which gives us a good, like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Gives us a good 8 miles to the edge of the map from this village here. Yes, there's these 2 single dwellings there, but those barely count as habitation. Gives us a good 5 to 8 miles to the edge of the map from this village of wilderness where, well, you can fit a lot of weird stuff in 5 to 8 miles of wilderness. That's all I'll say about that. Man, I'm just sick as a dog today. I wonder if anyone's watching live at the moment. Oh, Mr. Max is here. I'm not familiar with that French term. Mise en abîme. Yeah. Well, good to have you here. I started this in a previous stream. I'm just using the appendix of my Dungeon Master's Guide to populate a hex map to prove to myself and to certain other people, like Jeffro Johnson, that just following the procedures of the appendixes with an open palm. Uh, oh, oh, okay, okay, there we go. Um, just generating it with an open palm and a willingness to change the flow of things. And the Mis and Abim, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, is just the fact that I'm not sure how to keep track of chat when I am not in the StreamYard screen, so I'm just bringing you right into it uh, to check my chat periodically while I generate and populate this hex map. So let's come on over here. Do I want to do the hills or the Badlands first? I think we'll do the Badlands and the forest, and then all three batches of hills. Like we'll kind of work in an even band in a southeasterly direction towards Newfoundland. So let's see here. We got Badlands, which is a spooky type of terrain. We got kind of an ominous, foggy vibe going on, especially with this chaotic, evil city of goths over here. But I think I'm about to be disappointed because the rough table for Badlands actually doesn't have very good odds of giving you Badlands results. You're far more likely to get uh, an annoying hodgepodge of other results, of non-Badlands results. But big part of what we're doing right now is we're just trusting in Gary's judgment. He laid these tables out the way he did, and we're just going to follow them and see what kind of world it gives us. It's not the first time I've done this, but it is one of the more interesting times I've done this. I've gotten some very bland hex maps following these procedures, and I've gotten some very interesting ones. This is definitely shaping up to be one of the more interesting ones. All right. Lightning bolt indicates a depression. And of course, a pond shape icon indicates a pond. So we're getting like almost entirely scrubland in our ostensibly Badlands hex, subhex. It's just a little disappointing. Like there's only a 3 in 20 chance. We got more desert, more hills, more scrub than any Badlands results. Just a little frustrating. But we're trusting the process. And those two hill hexes will nicely tie probably into this hill region here when we flesh it out. But let's check our encounters here, which is the only one in the area, so we'll just check it. But there's nothing there. Oh, did it again. scrub. We want to erase the icon there. All right, let's get our inhabitation checks down. Oh, we got ourselves a village. Right there. And castle right there. And some ruins right there. Finally, a hamlet right there. Interesting. So we've got a couple villages and a castle cropping up, more castles than some village, cropping up kind of on the periphery of this forest here that is almost entirely unpopulated. So that raises the question, what's in the forest? Worth speculating on and thinking about. Let's come up here, flesh this spot. Oh, don't delete those yet. You haven't rolled for them. You stupid idiot. Bah? Yeah, I think so. Doesn't really matter at this moment, because what type of terrain hasn't been generated yet anyhow. And it could just as easily be one thing or the other. But I know there was two of them. A depression. Some hills. A mountain. And good old marsh. Lots of wetlands. All these wetlands is and rocky hills. It's really making me think of my own backyard, the Ottawa Valley and the Gatineau Hills, which is beautiful country, and very unlike any landscapes that you really see in most of European fantasy. Uh, it's kind of its own thing. It's a cool thing, but it is its own thing. This is doubly the case with the fact of the sheer number of lakes, of ponds we're getting is also obviously very, very Ottawa Valley. And that's coloring, I think, my perception of other results I'm getting, because well, once, like, your brain just is making connections all the time. So, for example, every time I'm seeing these desert results in what I'm visualizing as kind of especially near bodies of water, in what I'm essentially visualizing as kind of an Ontario, Quebec landscape, it makes me think of, there's this place called Sandbanks, which it's called that because there are banks of sand. It's a camping spot in Ontario, and yeah, you've got this kind of regular northeastern forest and all these hills, and then there, right near a lake, there are just these huge fine sand dunes. kind of out of nowhere. They almost feel out of place with the rest of the province. But a lot of the Ottawa Valley, the soil is quite sandy because a lot of it was at one point a riverbed. And that gives me ideas about these desert patches is the presence of former rivers, and it makes you think about elevation. And that's a 6. Sorry, a 6 is a more forest. Gets you thinking about all kinds of things. I don't think I'm going to go as long tonight as I did the other night. Just frankly, because I'm pretty tired, congested, not quite myself. But I figured I was so close to finishing up the population of the hexes at the very least that I could take the time, get that done, and we can worry about interpolating all of our results on a third stream. Yeah. So. Let's check encounters here. We've got a 4 in the forest. Forest it checks 4 times in a night. All right, we got 1. And is it a patrol? 14. No, it is not. So let's just tag that real quick. And then we've got 2, an afternoon and a morning and an afternoon, another 1, and then nothing. So is that other one a patrol? 11. No, it's not. Okay, so 2 forest encounters here. Oh man, I'm dying here, folks. $72 in the forest. That's more orcs. And second one, 8 in the forest is bombardier beetles. One of those is more exciting than the other, but I just favor sentient monsters in general. Oh, hello. I am live, yes. We'll talk to you later. Brief intrusion from Mrs. Night Danger. Yeah. Yeah, I favor sentient monsters as a rule of thumb. I just think they're more interesting. They're cooler. Wait a minute. One, two, three, four, 5. How did... Oh, there were runs there. How did that happen? Well, we'll check in habitation here and just see what happens. Somehow it seems to have got my threads crossed that I've already got a ruin there. Weird. Oh well. You win some, you lose some. And in this case, I lost track. Or did I already do... No, I didn't. I didn't do population for this section. Because I just did encounters, and I always do encounters before I do population. Yeah. 10. That's a that's a town. Is it here or here? We'll put some space between it and those ruins there, because I can't remember which hex it was. All right. It's amateur hour over here. Nothing interesting is happening. Well, that's not true. We got 2 towns right side by side. But again, it'll be interesting to figure out the population density of our spots, where our high population areas are, where our mountain passes are, so we can think about roads and what our major trade routes and stuff are that kind of determine the relationships between these different settlements and the borders of the domains and who controls what. All right, but for now, we can hop over. And for the hills, I think has anyone said anything interesting here? Yeah, I only got the one monitor. Um, and I'm a Luddite. There's a reason that all my videos that I film ahead of time are shot in a single take with my phone outdoors. I have no knack for what I'm doing right now. No knack at all. Should darken that up. All right. These are hills, which are alive. With the well, with that sound, you know the one. Oh, sneeze coming on. We'll see if it happens or not. Maybe not right now. Hills check in the morning. They do not. Forest checks all day. So forest, nothing. And then we've got the hills. We've got a campfire in the hills. That means 2 possible checks. And nothing. Campfire in the mountains, which means 1 possible check. Nothing. And then the forest. Something. Is it a patrol? 18. Sir. What is this forest encounter? "12 in the forests. That's wild boar. Okay. Oh, I'm fading fast here, folks. We're not going to make it. We're not going to make it at all. In fact, no, it's almost 10 o'clock. And I actually think I just gotta go to bed, actually. So I'll finish up rolling this terrain off street and the encounters and such. And then we will interpolate the results at a future date. I just feel terrible. Wow. Well, we got no live viewers at the moment anyway, so to my adoring fans, I bid thee good night.